Mr. Ravi Menon, MD, MAS, and everybody else present here. Um, Madam Mori Lim Tek Chu, you never heard of her. She's a senior citizen, lives in a part of Singapore called Yishun. And a little while ago this year, she was a participant in the POSB Senior Citizen Program. It's a pilot program. Uh, in this program, you get a contactless card. It's in something called a POSB sleeve. The sleeve lets you count your steps through the day. If you hit a target of steps, then it transfers some cashback points to the card. You can use the card to travel and use it for transport in public transportation systems. If you go to the community center, you tap your card, and automatic SMS goes to your next of kin to make sure they know that you're safe, you haven't got lost, even if you're potentially suffering from dementia. The POSB Smart Sleeve, the Senior Citizen Program, was an offshoot of something POSB did earlier, which was the POSB Smart Buddy Program. And that was for school kids. It continued to work on this idea of encouraging savings among youth. Parents can automatically put pocket money into the kid's wearable smart device every morning. The kid can go to the tuck shop, to the stationery, to the areas around the school, pay. Unfortunately, the kid's activities are tracked, so the parent knows whether the kid is eating healthy or not eating healthy. The parents have created a community around it, 20,000 parents who are now in constant touch, tracking what kids are doing and talking actively about how to improve the kids' lives. POSB also had another program earlier this year called POSB Jolly, and that was for migrant workers. So a lot of migrant workers who come to Singapore, it's a low-cost way to be able to have a banking set of facilities without a bank account. You can download the app. It allows you to put money into the app. You can check what your balances are. You can transfer through SMS to your country of origin. Some 60,000 workers have used this actively to transfer money. The point is simply, whether you're an old person, whether you're a young person, a school kid, whether you're a migrant in Singapore, the possibilities of digital and digital technology to make a difference are real, and those possibilities are being actualized every single day. I sometimes think of the power of digital in a few different categories, if you will. Over the last 3 days, we've seen so many examples, talks, booths out there, which speak to the inclusion aspect of digital technologies. What M-Pesa did in Africa over the last several years, bringing millions of people into the formal banking system, allowing payments to happen, allowing people to be able to create new livelihoods, that was remarkable and a game changer. When the Indian government launched the Jan Dhan Yojana program to create hundreds of millions of accounts for the unbanked, most people thought this would be cosmetic. There are 285 million accounts, and truth be told, in early months, people only focused on the fact that the accounts were largely unfunded. But today, a large number of those accounts do have funds. Direct benefit transfers go into those accounts. And at last count, the total aggregate of deposit values in those accounts are in excess of $5 billion. The notion of financial inclusion leading to better outcomes is indeed empirically proven. And increasingly now, people are being able to take this inclusion from a savings account to more sophisticated forms of financial investment. So democratization of financial planning, being able to make $100 regular savings every month into investment programs. None of this would be possible without the digitalization of finance. Financial inclusion perhaps has got its biggest impact on the other side of the balance sheet, on the lending side. The capacity to be able to create credit and give people access to credit who would not have been able to access credit has been remarkable. The reason you can do that is obviously data today allows you to create algorithmic lending models, new proxies for lending, so people who don't have credit history, people who have not been part of the borrowing universe, can now access financing and access credit. To my mind, this is definitely a game changer. But inclusion is not the only thing that digitalization gives us. A second big category to me is just pure efficiency. You can see the impact of efficiency in something as simple as electronic payments or basic banking services. I grew up in India, and I still recollect a time where people used to have to take half the day off because they had to go and do a banking transaction. I spent years in Indonesia where the traffic meant that you had to spend 3 hours in traffic jams trying to go to the bank to get something done. I know a time when you went and asked for a bank draft or a cashier's check, and you had to go 72 hours later to go get that to be able to make a payment. Think about the tremendous efficiency that digitalization of finance has been able to achieve. A huge amount of this don't show up in the national aggregates and the economic numbers. But the productivity value, the efficiency value is real. And then you think about transferring that productivity value from the individual consumer to the corporate and institutional part of the economy. The move of the trading systems and global marketplaces from the old exchange methodology to digitized marketplaces has obviously changed the world of financial markets over the last 10, 20 years. But increasingly, you're seeing the impact of that in other parts of the institutional frameworks. So supply chains. So with blockchain technology, smart contracts, potentially in the future, the elimination of hub and spoke arrangements. All of these have the capacity to fundamentally change the cost structures and the efficiency paradigms of how business is done. Of course, this can have consequences on the nature and shape of institutional arrangements of societies. But net-net, there is tremendous hope for efficiency and productivity. A third area where I think that digitalization of finance makes a big impact is, again, what we've seen a lot of in the last 3 days. The power of data, of machine learning, of artificial intelligence, to be able to find insights that we could not as human beings. Our brains are limited. The machine's brains are almost infinite. It's not just pattern recognition. It is being able to find opportunities and insights that even the patterns don't show, obviously. That is the power of digital finance. Now, what does that mean? It means that you can create products and services that we couldn't even dream of before. It means that you can actually reach out in ways and in context to people that we could not think of before. It means that financial services and banking does not have to be a separate activity, an independent adjunct activity. It can be embedded in the lives of people. It can be made available in context at a time and a location when people really need it to be relevant to them. And finally, I'm just coming from another panel where we talked at length about sustainable finance. It is quite clear that as we go forward, some of the biggest challenges for all of us as people are around climate change, are around income inequalities, are around the sustainability and the future of this planet and what we're going to leave behind for our next generations. Now, I don't profess to suggest that digital finance can solve everything, but I do believe that many of the new business models we need, many of the ways of measuring externalities and costing and pricing externalities into our P&Ls can be facilitated by what digital finance can do. Altogether, a lot of good. Obviously, technology and digital finance also comes with some risks. And there are risks potentially of financial exclusion instead of financial inclusion. That's distinctly possible because digital finance allows you to discriminate good from bad. How as society do we deal with a situation where the person who needs insurance does not get insured and the person who wants insurance or the person you want to insure doesn't need insurance? That's the problem of knowing too much, the problem of too much data. Similarly, the risks that come from cybercrime, cybersecurity, in a world where everything is digitized, how do you protect and guard against that? Finally, there are risks that come from the need to develop new rules for society, new social norms. How do you deal in a world where artificial intelligence models are making decisions that nobody can explain? Quite clearly, we have to make sure that we set up guardrails. But the reality is the same ingenuity, the same thoughts, the same minds and the same innovators who have been able to create all these fantastic solutions have the capacity in them to be able to create the guardrails that we need for the world to come. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk briefly about the Fintech Festival itself. As chairman of the Association of Banks of Singapore, I'm really proud and privileged to partner MAS to be able to put together this incredible platform. It's extraordinary when you think that this platform is only 3 years old. And in 3 years, it has been able to create such an extraordinary and compelling location and venue for people to come together and meet. Exchange of ideas, exchange of business cards, exchange of possibilities at scale. That's what the Singapore Fintech Festival has been able to achieve. And frankly, it's a great showcase for our country, for Singapore. The fact that we can bring the whole of the system together, regulators, public sector, private sector, academia, startups, venture capitalists, funders, all together in what the economists correctly call the densest startup ecosystem in the world, is testimony to why Singapore is a great place for some of these things to happen. A lot of people worked hard to put this together. I want to particularly call out Supendu Mohanty, who's the Chief FinTech Officer of MAS, and Iboon, who is the Director of ABS, for their incredible efforts to pull this thing together. A big salute to you on behalf of the Association of Banks in Singapore. And finally, a big shout out to all of you. In addition to being a great platform, this is a fantastic platform for celebration. It's a celebration of the enterprise, it's the celebration of the ideas, it's a celebration of the enthusiasm that all of you bring. Finally, the solutions to the problems of society, the world, market forces, don't just lie in the hands of governments. They certainly don't lie in the hands only of big corporations. They lie in the hands of hundreds and thousands of startups. They lie in the hands of people like you who are making it happen. And it is in recognition of this celebration of ideas and startups that the ABS is very proud to sponsor the ABS Global FinTech Award, which I'll be pleased to be able to hand out in a minute. So let me wind up in saying that I think the possibilities are immense. I think Singapore is a great place to realize many of these possibilities. And I think many of you have the answers in your hands. I'm convinced that together we can make those possibilities come alive and create a much better world. Thank you all.